What's up guys, welcome back to another episode whereby we are going to fix up a Landcruser engine part 2, but apparently mix nafanya kazi na hawako wamefika, so I'm in the garage in the morning. This discovery ilikuwa imebadilishwa engine but it had a knocking sound, so we had to replace the block. This is the block. And what was going to be done on this engine, car parts are going to be swapped from this engine to the new engine. So as I waited for my colleagues to come on to set up the block on the crane, this is standing crane, whereby we bolt the block there so that we could work on it. Alongside there was this car, this Range Rover, ilikuwa inafanywa some suspension checkups, but they had to extract the cradle. The cradle sits in the front part of the suspension, because this car had an issue with the airbag, na ilikuwa nafanya tu some modifications za cradle. Work on this engine had already started, so I had earlier said they were going to swap the engine parts from this engine to the other engine. But back to our engine now. The camshaft zilikuwa zinaoshwa, the camshaft. Crankshaft ilikuwa imekuja, you saw from the previous video, so it was doing cleaning it up with diesel so that to remove any particles zenye ziko in between it. Once we cleaned it up, we had to pressurize the crankshaft so as to extract all the diesel in between the holes. From there we went ahead and washed up the top cover. You had to extract all the silicone that was put on it. Camshaft are clean. The main bearings are all set up nicely. The crankshaft is now ready to go into the block. Cut also the pistons. We had to extract the compression rings and the oil rings. And we had our Mhindi engineer in the garage. Those are the con bearings. He fitted them up on the block. From there he replaced the oil rings and the compression rings in each and every piston. As you can see, there are 8 of them. We fitted in the crankshaft in the block. We also had to pour in some oil, engine oil, in order for them to be swift. We are now checking up the markings on the block. But we had an issue with the thrust bearing. Zilikuwa ziko worn out, and the thrust bearing sits in between the block and the crankshaft pale vo chini, and it helps to hold the crankshaft to the block. But meanwhile, the rings were being squeezed in on the piston so that we could fix the pistons back on the block. And this is how they go in. This ring squeezer is used to squeeze up the rings so as we could have compression in each and every piston that we are going to put back in the engine. We fitted them kwa crankshaft, and as we waited for the thrust bearing to be brought up, kukakuja another client in the garage. This is a Range Rover Evoque. You're gonna find some services, brake pads, disc, ball joints and all that. They gave me another client with the bad positive crankcase ventilation, a PCV, and it's normally attached on the crankcase that holds monitor oil and produces gas when your engine burns fuel. So we had to order that from the shop and wait for it to come so that it could be installed in the car. The cradle, as you can see now, it's all set up. Modification ishafanywa, kile kimebaki ni kuinstall the steering rack back kwa cradle, and then to mold back the cradle and steering rack back to the vehicle. And on with the work. You can see now the steering rack being set back kwa cradle. And by the time we were fixing everything up, it was pretty late, because it took a while for some of the parts to arrive in the garage. Kutoka hapo, we went back now to the block, the discovery block. The parts zishatolewa from the complete engine, and they were going to be fitted on the new engine. So you can see the parts in this properly down, the top covers, the EGR, the throtter, the manifold, the camshaft, the starter. I mean, like each and every component that is composed on the engine, aside from the block and the cylinders, zilikuwa ziko out here on the floor. And while they were preparing the part, came in another client with an issue with the lining. So we were adjusting the lining from the rear wheels. Once we were done with the lining situation, we went back to the engine and found the thrust washers had already been set, and now the engine was being oiled up for swift movement. Then from there we started tightening up the bolts, the pistons on the crankshaft. Now you can see how the crankshaft normally rotates. Once it was all smooth, we started setting up the engine sump. As of the minute, you can see now the silicone being applied on the sump. Silicone is used to act as a seal that avoids air or water intake in the engine. Up goes the engine sump. And once the engine sump was bolted properly on the block, we started fastening the bolts on the sump. We also had to put up the crankshaft cover and the oil cover. From there, we started fitting up the head cylinder on the block so that we could bolt it back together. You can see the valve, and after adjusting the head cylinder as it's supposed to be adjusted on the block, we started bolting it back together. You can see it uses some big bolts. Then we started fastening the bolt on the block. We also bolted back the flywheel on the block, and the metal in between there is used to balance the flywheel because the flywheel is normally light. So you can see our engineer fastening the bolts. Once the flywheel was bolted properly, we moved on to the camshaft. These are the camshaft, and as we were setting up the camshaft, we had to check up the marking so that we could be accurate while doing our timing. I also noted on the camshaft we have the exhaust side and the inlet side. We also get to learn new things, and as we learn new things, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Come on, just subscribe. You can see the markings are being checked once again. After checking up the marks, moved on the other side of the engine. Now this is where we have the diesel pump. Inashukani diesel pump. We also had to get some new seals kwa sababu kuna seals pale kwa cover zilikuwa zimekatika. We had to replace them, and after replacing the seals, we bolted the cover back on the block. We did the timing tension of one side of the camshaft, and this is the other side being attended to. And as we were doing that, story kiasi zilikuwa zimeshika pale kwa garage. Na record tu mwindi sana. Mwambie unafanya na mwindi. Kabisa. Unachukua mwindi vipi? With your fucking wavy hair.
With my?
Wavy hair.
This? Bro, I had worse than this.
I saw ile kumekuja
hapa. Yeah.
Ngoja pigwa show.
My wife told me, man.
Mama medunga na nungunungu.
My wife told me go and cut.
Yeah, enough of kudungwa na nungunungu. Back to our engine now. You can see the timing belts zote zimeweka vizuri, and they are rotating pretty well. But we had an issue, ilikuwa inakwama ikifika place fulani. That meant kwa hizi pulleys kuna some pulleys zilikuwa zimeuma nje, so we had to redo the thing again. And after making some observations, we found out that these pulleys hazikuwa zimeingiana vile zinafaa kuingiliana. So this was the main issue with the timing being messed up. So we are, after redoing the whole thing again, had to check up if everything was running smoothly. Again ilikuwa inakwama kwa sababu kule kuna bolt tumeweka pale kwa pulley na haifai kuwa hapo. But it took us a while to notice it kwa sababu ni kitu tiny hata si rahisi ionekane. But after doing a thorough checkup, kaamua pia kuangalia kwa internet to see if the timing was all right. To our success, it was all right. So we had to continue with the work tomorrow. But mimi kulikuwa na gari kwa garage, ilikuwa nabadilishwa the seals ya top cover kwa sababu ilikuwa na some leakages. It was late at night, but we are still working. So these are the seals being set up on the top cover. These are the old seals. And these are the new seals. And this is the inlet manifold. After cleaning up the top cover, the new seals were going in. And after the seals were all set, we started fixing the top cover back on the engine. It was pretty late, it was around 10. now we're bolting up the bolts back on the top cover so that we could fix the inlet manifold.
Strange block beats.
In goes the inlet manifold. It was being sealed. We used silicone to seal it up. And this is it on the engine, and the car was ready to go. Kenya the next morning kama kawaida kuamkia dialysis. This was a Mercedes Benz. Tulikuwa tuna check up the issue with it. Ilikuwa na some faulty features. And after checking it up, tukarudi back to our engine. Now we started assembling the car parts zile zilikuwa zimebaki. You can see all the bolts ziko pale kwa ground. And the cover now was being sealed up properly so that we could start fixing up the car parts. Now you can see the water pump is already on the engine. In goes the steering pump. And that being set up is the crankshaft sensor. And without a crankshaft sensor, the car cannot start up. The alternator is bolted up on the block. The AC compressor is also there. You can see the starter, it's in the engine and it's located at a very weird place in between the engine. I mean, like, who puts a starter in there? Toyotas. In goes the nozzles. We're now fastening the bolts to the nozzles. Katoka hapo tukenda lunch kiasi juu enja nayo ilikuwa imetuweza. Tukarudi back on the car. We fitted up the top cover and the nozzle pipes. From the nozzle pipes, we started now fastening the bolts to the top cover. The engine imebakia vitu kiasi sijafit kwa gari, so we craned up the engine and we started fixing it back on the body. You can see now the gearbox is there, the torque converter is there. And after the long struggle of fixing the engine, we were able to maneuver our way on the engine. Kitubaki sawa ni kuset the gearbox and the engine to aligned. And once we did that, we started fastening the bolts, the gearbox, and mounting at the engine. Tukamaliza hapo, tukafill up the engine with engine oil. It uses 8 liters of engine oil because this is a big engine. From there, to set up the batteries. It uses 2 batteries, one near backup and one near starter. I mean, because like the starter is huge, so we have to get enough electric supply for the starter to crank. And after the long struggle, we finally cranked up the engine. Listen to it. The reason as to it was not starting up at first because it's because of the compression. I can build up compression, but once the compression was built up, gari can grow. So now the remaining part was to fit up the pipes zile zilikuwa zimebaki on the engine. That's the air filter. Turbo pipes were to be fitted on the car. And now we're fixing up the pulleys so that we could fit up the driving belt. That's the drive belt already on the engine. Kitu kwa baki sasa ni ku set up the fan, the radiator. This is the intercooler radiator. That's the water radiator. Zote zikawa ziko set up on the engine. We went ahead and bought steering oil fluid. That's the steering oil fluid. Because of the 2 huge turbos, the car has an engine radiator. This is used to cool the engine. Tukatoka hapo, now we filled up the hose pipes and the car was running. From there, the client surprised Ogada with a present because he was happy with the work that was done on the engine. Na kitu tulikuwa baki nao ni kufit up the sumps. Tukaingia chini gari so that we could fit up the sumps, the sump guards, and from there gari ikienda test. Na hivyo ndivyo ilienda ikiendaga. Hit the like button kama umeenjoy the video up to this moment. Also subscribe to the channel kama subscribe. From there tukarudi to the discovery engine, ikapata ndio ilikuwa inakuwa fitted back. This is it on the body. Kitu back ni kufit up, it starts, but kitu kwa back now ni kufit up the pipes. Kwa kuja another client diagnosis, I had to do my thing. This was a Makex, ilikuwa na some faulty features. Tuka clear the faults. Kwa kuja another Range Rover kwa garage, ilikuwa nafanywa service ya discs, pads and everything. Pia grill ilikuwa inapigwa rangi kiasi. Also kwa spray booth kuna these rims zilikuwa zinapigwa rangi. You can see vile zimetokea poa sana. Backside ni for them to dry up so that they could be fitted on the rubbers. From there, this car imekuwa ikisit kwa garage for a while. Now kazi yake ndio ilikuwa imeanza. The bodywork you can see inakuwa scrubbed well so that iweze kupakwa filler. Apparently inakaa hivyo. And this is it, tukiwa pakwa filler. Kitu imebaki sasa ni the undercoat, the base coat paints, and that's how we get to end the video. Thank you very much for making it to the end of the video. Subscribe to the channel kama hujasubscribe. I shall see you in the next episode. Peace out.